If we want to call the meeting to order, we'll look at it and approve the minutes of the May 4th meeting.
Move to approve.
Second? It's
I
approved.
think you have to do all in favor.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's approved. Any unfinished business?
Not that I know of.
Okay. Let's move on to new business and the pool fencing requirements amendment to the IPMC.
So last summer, my name is Chris Rose, Assistant Director of Inspections. Last summer, we had some difficult complaints associated with pools, temporary and permanent, in people's backyards. A lot of it has to do with snow fencing and the neighbors not liking the snow fencing around the pools. And it still really doesn't prevent somebody from getting into the area. So most of the language that we're going to look at today came from the Pool and Spa Code, the International Code Council Pool and Spa Code, with a few changes. But that's where we got most of the information. So it's really short. So hopefully we won't be here all morning.
Okay.
So the 30321 fence and barrier height and clearances. Barrier heights and clearances shall be in accordance with all of the following. The top of the barrier shall not be less than 48 inches above grade where measured on the side of the barrier. That fence is, excuse me, I'm also dealing with new glasses. That faces away from the pool or spa. Such height shall exist around the entire perimeter of the barrier and for a distance of 4 feet measured horizontally from the outside of the pool or spa to the inside of the required barrier. And also please stop me if we need to discuss any section. The vertical clearance between grade and the bottom of the barrier shall not exceed 2 inches for grade surfaces that are not solid, such as grass or gravel, where measured on the side of the barrier that faces away from the pool or spa. The vertical clearance between a surface below the barrier to a solid surface such as concrete and to the bottom of the required barrier shall not exceed 4 inches where measured on the side of the required barrier that faces away from the pool or spa. Where the top of the pool or spa structure is above grade, the barrier shall be installed on grade or shall be mounted on the top of the pool or spa structure. Where the barrier is mounted on the top of the pool or spa, the vertical clearance between the top of the pool or spa and the bottom of the barrier shall not exceed 4 inches. Any questions yet? Moving on to openings. Openings in the barrier shall not allow passage of 4-inch diameter sphere. 30323, solid barrier surfaces. Solid barriers that do not have openings shall not contain indentations or protrusions that form handholds and footholds, except for normal construction tolerances as tooled masonry joints. I'm going to go back to the old ones. It seems like that's easier. My apologies. Mesh fence as a barrier. 30324. Mesh fences other than chain link fences in accordance with the section 30327 shall be installed in accordance with the manufacturer's instructions that comply with the following. The bottom of the mesh fence shall be not more than 1 inch above the deck or installed grade surface or grade. The maximum vertical clearance from the bottom of the mesh fence and the solid surface shall not permit the fence to be lifted more than 4 inches from grade or decking. The fence shall be designed and constructed so that it does not allow the passage of a 4-inch sphere under any mesh panel. The maximum vertical clearance from the bottom of the mesh fence and the solid surface shall not be more than 4 inches above grade or decking. The attachment device shall attach each barrier section at a height not lower than 45 inches above grade. Common attachment devices include, but are not limited to, devices that provide the security equal to or greater than the hook and eye type latch, incorporating the spring, actuated retaining lever such as the safety gate hook. Where a hinged gate is used with a mesh fence, the gate shall comply with section 3033, which is in this adoption. It's not in a different book. Patio deck sleeves such as vertical post receptacles that are placed inside the patio surface shall be of a non-conductive material. Mesh fences shall not be installed on top of on-ground residential pools. 303241, setbacks for mesh fences. The inside of a mesh fence shall not be closer than 48 inches to the nearest edge of the water of a pool or spa. 30325, closely spaced horizontal members. Where the barrier is composed of horizontal and vertical members, and the distance between the tops of the horizontal members is not less than 45 inches, the horizontal member shall be located on the pool or spa side of the fence. Spacing between vertical members shall not exceed 1 3/4 inches in width. Where the decorative cutouts within the vertical members, spacing within the cutouts shall not exceed 1 3/4 inches in width. 30326, widely spaced horizontal members. Where the barrier is composed of a horizontal and vertical member, and the distance between the tops of the horizontal members is 45 inches or more, spacing between the vertical members shall not exceed 4 inches. Where there are decorative cutouts within the vertical members, the interior width of the cutout shall not exceed 1 3/4 inches. 30327, chain link dimensions. The maximum opening formed by a chain link fence shall not be more than 1 3/4 inches. Where the fence is provided with slats fastened at the top and bottom, which reduce the opening, such opening shall not be more than 1 3/4 inches. 30328, diagonal members. Where the barrier is composed of a diagonal member, the maximum opening formed by the diagonal members shall not be more than 1 3/4 inch. The angle of the diagonal member shall not be greater than 45 inches from vertical. Clear zone. Where equipment, including pool equipment such as pumps, filters, and heaters, is on the same lot as the pool or spa, and such equipment is located outside the barrier protecting the pool or spa, such equipment shall be located not less than 36 inches from outside the barrier. 303.3, doors and gates. Doors and gates and barriers shall comply with the requirements of section 303.3.1 through 303.3.2 and shall be equipped to accommodate a locking device. Pedestrian access doors and gates shall open outward away from the pool or spa, shall be self-closing, and shall have a self-latching device from an outside distance of 6 inches. 303.3.1, double or multiple doors and gates. Double doors and gates or multiple doors and gates shall not have fewer than one leaf secured in place, and the adjacent leaf shall be secured with a self-latching device. 303.3.2, latch release. For doors and gates and barriers, the door and gate release mechanism shall be in accordance with the following. Where door and gate release mechanisms are accessed from the outside of the barrier and are not of the self-locking type, such mechanisms shall be located above the finished floor or ground surface at residential pools and spas not less than 54 inches. Where door and gate latch release mechanisms are of a self-locking type, such as where the lock is operated by the means of a key, an electronic opener, or entry of a combination into an integral combination lock, the lock operation control and the latch release mechanism shall be located above the finished floor or ground surface at residential pools and spas not greater than 54 inches. Where the only latch release mechanism of a self-latching device for a gate is located at the pool or spa side of the barrier, the release mechanism shall be located at a point that is at least 3 inches below the top of the gate. 30333, barriers adjacent to latch release mechanisms. Where a latch release mechanism is located on the inside of a barrier, openings in a door, gate, and barrier within 18 inches of the latch shall not be greater than 1/2 inch in any dimension. 3034, structure wall as a barrier. Where the wall of a dwelling or structure serves as part of the barrier, and where the windows having a sill height of not less than 48 inches above the indoor finished floor, doors and gates shall have an alarm that produces an audible warning when the window or door or screen are opened. The alarm shall be listed and labeled as a water hazard insurance alarm in accordance with UL 2017. There's an exception. An approved means of protection such as self-closing doors with self-latching devices is provided. Such means of protection shall provide a degree of protection that is not less than the protection afforded by the alarm that produces the audible warning when the window or door or screen are opened. Any questions yet? Everybody's still awake, right? Last page.
I do have one, Chris, on
Yeah.
and it's back a little bit on the clear zone.
Clears.
When you were talking about the equipment not being more than 36 inches from
Yep.
the fenced-in area. Is there a reasoning behind that as far as the proximity of the equipment to the fence?
I don't know. Are you 30329?
Yeah.
Unless it comes from the electrical code in some way. Not less than 36 inches from the outside of the barrier.
I know I have seen pools that the equipment was back around the corner of a house or someplace where it's not in the view of the pool. Mm-hmm. You know, and it's more than 36 inches from the fence that protects the pool in order to not be in sight. So I was just kind of wondering what the thoughts were there or what was the purpose behind that rule.
I don't know what the purpose is. If you want, I can try to research on the International Code Council's background information.
Yeah,
And see
I
if I
think
can
that
find
could kind of create a design problem, and I don't see a purpose in my mind right now anyway on what that proximity is about. And in most cases, we'll put that equipment around a corner and it'll be fenced in also, so it's not seen. But it a lot of times will be, 10 or 12 or 15 feet from the actual pool and fence in order to have it be obscured.
That would make sense if I were a property owner with a pool.
That's not good looking equipment. It's not something you want to be seen.
So I think, depending on how we move forward at the end of the 4 pages, we could table that section and meet again next month
Get some clarification
until we move
on
it forward. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay.
Chris, I may have just a couple of questions for you too, and I apologize if I didn't completely understand this, but is this just for residential?
It's just for 1 or 2 family dwellings. Yep.
Okay. And then second, on the chain link dimensions, where we have the clear spacing of the chain link, they specify specifically 1 3/4 inches. Is that a standard chain link fence?
No, it's not. We Googled it this morning, and I'm pretty sure a standard chain link is 2 1/4.
So this would require potentially a kind of a custom chain link fence
Yep.
with the concept, I assume, for climbing, right?
Yep. It could also, well, it would be a custom chain link, or it could be, I know that I've seen it around town in commercial structures where they have that slat that kind of goes vertical in between the squares of the chain link. That could be used.
I'm curious if maybe just, if we have any strong feelings, right or wrong, but if instead of calling out or specifying an exact dimension there, if calling out just standard chain link fence would make more sense, noting that, it calls out that the minimum height is 48 inches, right? So
Yep.
rather than having to do a custom chain link fence or requiring the slats, I think that was the next sentence where fence is provided with slats. Just food for thought, that might be worth tabling and discussing.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's a size that's available,
Right,
without a huge upcharge or something
right.
too. So I guess it would be good to probably know that.
I am not a chain link fence savant, so
No.
I tried Googling it quick. I wasn't able to get to the interior dimension, but it seems like that's maybe a little tighter than a standard chain link fence. So just maybe an item worth further discussing.
I would just want to know that it's made.
Right.
It may not be made,
Oh, sure.
and then that point probably doesn't get used unless it has slats in it at that point. So
Well,
that
if
would
we're
be-
gonna come back and discuss the clear zone,
Yeah.
we could come back and discuss take the month to review or research online or
call a couple
physically at
fence
one of the big
companies.
box stores,
Yeah.
what's available.
Yeah,
And, excuse me. And if the 1 3/4 is even available, or if they would have to do the vertical slats that kind of weave in between.
Right. Yeah, it seems like it might be worthwhile to clarify and or reword that to make it a little less intrusive on the homeowner. I typically don't see chain link fences around residential pools, but I haven't
usually
paid
when they spend the money to put a pool in, they're buying a little bit better fence than a chain
You
link.
got it.
But
Well, remember that some of these pools are the temporary ones,
above grounds.
and they're gonna bring them in their existing backyard, and potentially the fence that's already there would be the chain link.
Oh,
And so
gotcha.
now we would,
Yeah, that could be a problem if that existing chain link is 2 1/4.
yep.
Yeah.
We would be either asking them to remove that existing and put something different there, or again, the slats, the vertical slats.
Yeah, well, it sounds like that needs a little more research. So
Sure, we can do that. So I think we were on the last page. Is there any other questions for the first three?
Nope.
Okay. 3035, on-ground residential pool structures as a barrier. Pool structure as a barrier. An on-ground residential pool wall structure or a barrier mounted on top of an on-ground residential pool wall structure shall serve as a barrier where all of the following conditions are present. Where only the pool wall serves as a barrier, the bottom of the wall is on grade, the top of the wall is not less than 48 inches above grade for the entire perimeter of the pool. The wall complies with the requirements of section 3032, and the pool manufacturer allows the wall to serve as a barrier. Where a barrier is mounted on top of the pool wall, the top of the barrier is not less than 48 inches above grade for the entire perimeter of the pool, and the wall and barrier on top of the wall comply with the requirements of section 3032.
Chris,
Yep.
can I just interject something quick here?
Yeah.
Is there a specific dimension that defines a pool
I-
versus whatever else it might be?
So I did quickly print before we got here. It's the safety barrier guidelines for residential pools, and I wonder if there isn't a definition.
Just curious, because certainly they make all sorts of different size kiddie pools versus adult pools, above ground pools. I wonder at times if maybe some large jacuzzis couldn't, whatever. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but curious if there's a specific dimension where there's a stepping point. If you're going to go to Target and buy a pool and
And carry it out for your 1-year-old. We have one of those.
Yep.
We use it for icing. We can certainly check, I mean, we're coming back anyway, so we can certainly check what kind of definition the pool and spa code has. I would imagine at the beginning of the book, just like the IBC and the IRC, there's going to be a dimension for it. And we can include that in this amendment to the IPMC.
Yeah, or maybe it's a volume. It's kind of a curious topic. If we're gonna put something in the code that relates to creating a fence around a pool structure, and then what is the definition of a pool structure?
I can see where somebody would complain about their neighbor's dog pool, for instance,
It opens up the
and
door.
they have little kids where it only takes an inch of water to drown.
Right.
So we can include that in the next round. That's a very good point. I think we're on number 3.
Yep.
Ladders or steps used as a means of access to the pool are capable of being secured, locked, or removed to prevent access except where the ladder or step are surrounded by a barrier that meets the requirements of Section 303. Openings created by the securing, locking, or removal of ladders and steps do not allow the passage of a 4-inch diameter sphere. Barriers that are mounted on top of ground. I'm going to start that one over. Barriers that are mounted on top of on-ground residential walls, pool walls, are installed in accordance with the pool manufacturer's instructions. 3036, natural barriers. I don't think we have, we do, we have the river. In the case where the pool or spa area abuts the edge of a lake or other natural body of water, public access is not permitted or allowed along the shoreline, and required barriers extend to and beyond the water's edge not less than 18 inches. A barrier is not required between the natural body of water shoreline and the pool or spa. 3037, natural topography. Natural topography that prevents direct access to the pool or spa area shall include, but not be limited to, the mountains to mountains and natural rock formations. A natural barrier approved by the governing body shall be acceptable, provided that the degree of protection is not less than the protection afforded by the requirements of 3032 through 3035.
One question I have, Chris, I don't know, with spas, they always have a cover on them. So the cover is a hard cover, then usually you don't see those having to have a fence around them. I know some of the pools that are available now have hard covers on them also.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if that's been looked into at all, or if that's not, if you're still requiring a fence within all this, regardless of what kind of cover is on those appliances.
I think that kind of goes hand in hand with Mike's question about the definition of a pool. Mm-hmm. I wonder so initially, the reason that we're here is the temporary pools, and I'm not saying the spas should be excluded because, like I said earlier, it doesn't take much water to drown. But we can certainly research where the cover would be required. I feel like most people would do it anyway just to protect. You have to test those things every day. It's kind of a pain.
I got to keep the heat in them, so that's.
I feel like that cover is going to be there regardless,
Yep.
but maybe something should be included where the weight of the cover, because little kids, if they want to get in there, they're going to get in there.
Yeah, and most of those are 3 feet off the ground, so it's tough for them to raise it up and get it open. But just trying to define this a little bit so that we don't open a can of worms. I think and there may be some other things in the code that we're not aware of or looking at here right now that address that. But
It could potentially be an interesting summer with complaints.
well, and I
But
know
being
there's-
this is the first time we're doing it and the 2024 is right around the corner, it'll be a learning experience.
okay.
So we'll include at the next meeting, and I'm not I'm just trying to recap so that we don't forget something. I'm not trying to take over.
Okay.
The definition, the spa cover, and a little bit of research on chain link with the openings. Are there any other questions, or is there anything else you think we should include?
Not seeing any.
Nope.
Well, my presentation is done, so
Are you looking to approve this without those answers and have those answers be added to it, or table it and get those answers and then approve it all as one package?
I think it makes sense to approve it all as one, and I think it would be less work for the city attorney's office that has to draw it up.
Yeah.
So I
at
think
this
if we
point,
do it
we
all
just-
as one, that would be more clean.
And ultimately, this will fall under the
The IPMC.
The IRC or the
Nope, the property maintenance code.
property maintenance code.
Yep.
Okay,
So we put it in a section within the property maintenance code. I think we started at 3033 enclosure. And I'm sure you don't have your books with you.
but that would then.
So
apply-
there is a section in the property maintenance code, section 303, that deals with pools and spas. And then we put it right in between there, between pools and spas and then exterior structure. So, and I bet you that's where we're gonna find, I didn't even realize it till right now. I bet you that's where we'll find that exterior structure, why, the reasoning behind the 36 inches. But we're coming back anyway, so
Okay,
it doesn't make sense to review it when you're sitting here. We can review it and present.
okay. With that in mind, I would entertain a motion to table this until further information is gathered.
I would second that.
All in favor? Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Thanks, Chris.
I think there is one announcement. Mike is terming out, and we are in search of another member for the board. So that being said, any recommendations would be appreciated.
Okay. Okay. With that, we will motion to adjourn.
I motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.